The grand hall of the palace shimmered under the light of three suns. Stood at his assigned post near the ceremonial entrance, watching the assembled crowd with careful eyes. He had been on Chrysalis Prime for 6 months now, assigned as a security consultant to the royal palace. It was supposed to be an easy job, a way for Earth to show goodwill to their new alien allies. Queen sat on her crystalline throne, young and graceful. She was barely 3 cycles old by standards, which made her little more than a teenager by human comparison. Her people were peaceful, known throughout the galaxy for their art and philosophy. They had never fought a war in their recorded history. Their cities were beautiful, their culture rich, but their military was almost non-existent. That was why they hired the Guard. They were warriors, tall and powerful, with thick armor-like skin and 4 arms built for combat. Commander Hal led the palace security, and he made it clear from day one that he considered unnecessary. Earth was new to the galactic community, and humans were seen as primitive compared to species that had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. Did not argue with the commander. He simply did his job, observing and taking notes, and what he saw worried him. The palace defenses relied entirely on the Guard. Every security checkpoint, every patrol, every response team was. If something happened to them, the palace would be defenseless. Had written 3 reports about this vulnerability. All 3 had been politely acknowledged and then ignored. Bailey approached him during a break in the ceremony. She worked in the diplomatic wing, helping Earth's ambassador navigate the complex politics of the Empire. She handed a data pad with a smile that did not quite reach her eyes. "More intelligence reports," she said quietly. "General is making moves again." Scan the information. General was a warlord who controlled several border systems. He had been making speeches lately, angry speeches about how they had too much influence in the Galactic Council despite being weak. He called them parasites who hid behind hired warriors while pretending to be wise and peaceful. "Has Commander Hal seen this?" asked. "Yes, he says is all talk, that no would attack a world protected by other. It would break their warrior code or something." Frowned, maybe, but I would feel better if we had backup plans. "You and your backup plans," said with a slight laugh. "You know they think you are paranoid, right? Better paranoid than dead." Squeezed his shoulder and walked back to her station. Returned his attention to the hall, watching the patterns of movement, noting who entered and who left. Old habits from his military days never quite disappeared. The ceremony ended and the crowd began to disperse. Queen descended from her throne, surrounded by advisors. Ambassador, as her chief counselor, walked beside her. The ambassador was old by standards, his crystalline skin showing the fine cracks of age. He had served the royal family for decades and was known for his wisdom. Had requested a meeting with the Queen several times to discuss security concerns. Each time, he was told she was too busy. Today, however, Ambassador as approached him directly. "The Queen will see you now," the ambassador said. "Briefly, she has many appointments today." Followed the ambassador to a smaller chamber off the main hall. Queen waited there, her large compound eyes reflecting the light in rainbow patterns. Up close, she seemed even younger, almost fragile. "You wish to speak with me about security?" she asked. Her voice was soft, musical. "Yes, Your Majesty. I have concerns about the current defensive arrangement. The palace relies entirely on the Guard. If something were to compromise them, there would be no secondary defense." The Queen tilted her head, a gesture of curiosity among her people. "But Commander Hal assures me his forces are the finest in the sector. Why would we need more?" "It is not about their skill," explained. "It is about redundancy. In military planning, you never want a single point of failure. What if they were called away? What if there was an internal conflict among them? What if General attacked?" Ambassador as interrupted. "That is what you really worry about, yes?" Nodded. "The General has been increasingly hostile in his rhetoric, and many of the palace guards are the same species. If appealed to their loyalty, you suggest our own guards might betray us. The ambassador's tone was sharp. That is a serious accusation. I am not accusing anyone. I am identifying a risk. It is what I was hired to do. Queen raised a delicate hand for silence. I understand your concern, but I must trust my guards. They have protected my family for generations. Commander Hal gave his oath to serve and protect. Among such oaths are sacred. Your Majesty, I have served with many soldiers who gave oaths. Sometimes circumstances change. Sometimes people make choices we do not expect. I am only asking that we prepare contingency plans. The Queen considered this. What would you suggest? Train some of your own people in basic security procedures. Establish secure communication channels that do not rely on systems. Create fallback positions within the palace. Small things that could make a difference in an emergency. Ambassador as shook his head. They are not warriors. We have never been warriors. It is not in our nature. You do not need to be warriors. You just need to know how to lock a door and call for help. Queen smiled gently. Your concern is noted. I will consider your suggestions. But understand that my people have survived for thousands of years through diplomacy and trust, not through suspicion and weapons. I cannot rule with fear. Wanted to argue further but knew it would do no good. He bowed respectfully and left the chamber. As he walked back to his post, he saw Commander Hal watching him from across the courtyard. This expression was unreadable, but got the impression the commander knew exactly what had been discussed. The next few days passed in routine duties. The Festival of Unity approached, a celebration of the alliance between thee and the. Ships began arriving from across the sector, filling the orbital stations and landing pads. The palace opened its gates to visitors, and crowds flowed through the halls. Notice something odd about some of the ships that arrived. Their cargo configurations looked unusual, heavier than normal for passenger or trade vessels. He reported it to Commander Hal, who dismissed his concerns. Those are supply ships, the commander said, bringing food and materials for the festival. You see threats everywhere, human. Perhaps the commander was right. Perhaps was being paranoid. But his instincts kept nagging at him, the same instincts that had kept him alive through 3 combat deployments back on Earth. On the evening the festival began, stood on the palace balcony watching the celebration below. Lights filled the city, music drifted up from the streets, and the sky was full of ships. It was beautiful and peaceful. Joined him, holding 2 cups of the local drink, something sweet that tasted like honey and flowers. You should relax, she said. Enjoy the festival, nothing is going to happen. Took the cup and forced a smile. You are probably right. But even as he said it, he saw flashes of light on the horizon. Distant explosions, too far away to hear but bright enough to see. Saw them too. Her smile faded. That is not part of the festival, she whispered. Then the alarms began to sound. The palace shook as the first explosion hit the outer wall. Grabbed's arm and pulled her away from the balcony as debris rained down from above. All around them, people screamed and ran in confusion. The festival lights that had seemed so beautiful moments ago now illuminated chaos and panic. What is happening? Shouted over the noise of alarms and destruction. We are under attack, said. He activated his communication device trying to reach the security center. Static filled his ear. The communication system was down or jammed. We need to get to the throne room. Now. They ran through corridors filled with fleeing courtiers and servants. His military training kicked in, his mind automatically processing the tactical situation. The explosions were concentrated on the eastern defenses, which meant the main assault would come from that direction. The orbital defense platforms must have been sabotaged or disabled because ships were now firing on the city with no resistance. Commander Hal stood in the throne room surrounded by his guards. He was shouting orders into his communicator, his 4 arms gesturing sharply. Queen stood near her throne, flanked by Ambassador Az and several other advisors. Her large eyes were wide with fear. "Report," demanded as he entered. Hal turned to him and saw something he had never seen before in the commander's expression: uncertainty, fear. General has launched a full assault on Chrysalis Prime. He has destroyed our orbital defenses and landed ground forces throughout the capital. His ships control the space around the planet. The commander's voice was strained. He broadcasts that he comes to claim the throne and restore dominance over the weak. "How many forces do we have?" asked. "The palace guard numbers 200, but—" Hal hesitated, looking at his fellow. "I have received communications from General. He has sent messages to all warriors in the palace." Felt his stomach tighten. What kind of messages? "He offers us a choice. Stand down and we will be rewarded. Join him and we will have positions of honor in his new order. Fight against him and we will be declared traitors to our species." Hal's voice dropped lower. "He says this is not our fight. The hired us, but our loyalty must be to our own kind first." "You cannot be considering this," said. "You swore an oath to protect the Queen." "An oath made under a contract," one of the other guards said. "Contracts can be broken when circumstances change." Queen stepped forward. Her voice trembled but remained steady. "Commander Hal, you have served my family with honor. I do not believe you would abandon us now." The commander looked at the young queen and saw genuine regret in his eyes. "Your Majesty, you are kind and good, but you do not understand the ways of warriors. My people have codes that go deeper than contracts, has invoked the law of blood which says must not kill except in defense of. If I fight against him, I break that law. My family would be shamed. My name would be struck from the warrior records." "So you will just leave?" Could not keep the anger from his voice. "You will walk away and let her die?" "I will walk away so she might live," Hal said. "If we fight, we'll destroy the palace completely. If we stand down, perhaps he will show mercy. Perhaps he will let the live under his rule." "You know that is not true. Hates the. He has made that clear in every speech he has ever given." Hal had no answer for that. Instead, he turned to his guards and gave an order in his own language. One by one, the warriors began to lower their weapons. Some removed their armor. Others simply turned and walked toward the exits. "No," Queen whispered, "please do not leave us." But they did leave. Within minutes, nearly 200 trained warriors had abandoned their posts. Some offered apologies as they passed the Queen. Others avoided looking at her entirely. Commander Hal was the last to go. He stopped before Queen and bowed deeply. "I am sorry, Your Majesty. I wish circumstances were different, but I must think of my family and my people. I hope you understand." Then he too was gone, leaving the throne room nearly empty. Only a handful of advisors remained, along with End. The sound of distant explosions continued, growing closer. "Pulled aside. We need to evacuate. I have been organizing the diplomatic staff. There are underground tunnels that lead out of the palace. We can get maybe 20 people through before forces find them. Then get the Queen and the advisors through." "I am," said, "but there is room for you too. You are not sworn to protect her. You are a consultant, not a soldier in her service. This is not your fight." Looked across the room at Queen. The young Queen stood very still, her advisors speaking urgently around her. She looked small and vulnerable and completely alone. Her own guards had abandoned her. The warriors she trusted to protect her had walked away when she needed them most. He thought about the oath he had taken when he joined Earth's military, to protect those who could not protect themselves, to stand when others would run. That oath had no expiration date. It did not end because his tour of duty ended. It did not disappear because the person he was protecting was an alien on a world far from Earth. Get the others to safety. Make sure the diplomatic staff reaches Earth's embassy. What about you? I am staying. Stared at him. You will die here, you know that, right? One human against an army, you cannot win. Probably not, but someone needs to stand with her. Someone needs to show her that not everyone runs when things get hard. Go, that is an order. He was not actually her superior, but old military habits made her respond anyway. She grabbed his arm one last time, squeezed hard, then turned and ran to gather the other humans. Walked to where Queen stood with her advisors. Ambassador as was urging her to flee into the city, to hide among the population until rescue could come. The Queen shook her head. If we hide, we'll tear the city apart looking for us. Innocent people will die. If we stay here, we die, the ambassador said. At least in the city we have a chance. No, said, interrupting them. If you go into the city, you will be found within hours. We'll have troops searching everywhere. Here, at least, we can defend a single position. They all turned to look at him. The Queen's eyes held confusion and hope. You stayed, she said softly. Why? Because someone should. Ambassador as stepped closer. Human, I respect your courage, but one warrior cannot defend this palace against an army. You are right, one warrior cannot, but I am not planning to defend the whole palace, just one room, this room. Began to move around the throne room, assessing its defensive potential. The throne room has only 3 entrances. We can barricade 2 of them and focus our defense on the main entrance. The walls are thick crystal, hard to breach. And I know things about defensive tactics that forces will not expect. What kind of things? Queen asked. Smiled grimly. Human things. Earth is not a peaceful world, Your Majesty. We have been fighting wars for our entire history. We know how to make an enemy pay for every inch of ground they take. He started giving orders to the remaining palace staff, organizing them to gather weapons the guards had left behind, to create barriers, to seal the side entrances. Some of them looked at him like he was crazy, but they obeyed because he spoke with confidence and purpose, and right now those were the only things they had to hold on to. Outside, the sounds of battle grew louder. Forces had breached the palace outer defenses. Soon they would reach the throne room. Queen approached as he worked. If you stay, you will die protecting an alien queen you barely know. Your own people have fled to safety. Why would you make this choice? Stopped what he was doing and looked at her directly. Your Majesty, where I come from, we have a saying. It is not about who you are. It is about who you choose to be when everything is falling apart. Today, I choose to be someone who stands, even if I am the only one. The Queen reached out and touched his hand, a gesture of deep respect among her people. Then, I am honored to stand with you of Earth. The first enemy soldiers appeared at the far end of the corridor, moving toward the throne room, raised his weapon and took position. Everyone behind the barriers, he ordered. Here they come. The first wave of soldiers came fast and confident. They expected to find an empty throne room or perhaps a few terrified advisors hiding in corners. What they found instead was organized resistance. Had positioned himself behind a makeshift barrier of overturned furniture and decorative shields taken from the palace walls. He had given the remaining staff simple instructions. Stay low. Only fire when he said. Conserve ammunition. They were not soldiers, but fear and desperation made them listen. The enemy soldiers rounded the corner into the main corridor. Counted 8 of them, all warriors in combat armor. They moved in standard formation, weapons raised. Let them advance until they were fully committed to the corridor with no easy retreat. Then he opened fire. The first 3 soldiers went down before they understood what was happening. The others scrambled for cover, returning fire wildly. Had studied military tactics during his time at the palace. They were excellent warriors in open combat, but they relied heavily on superior strength and numbers. They were not used to fighting from defensive positions or facing enemies who used ambush tactics. Fired in controlled bursts, forcing them to keep their heads down. When they tried to advance, he hit them with suppressing fire. When they tried to retreat, he picked off the slower ones. Within 5 minutes, the corridor was clear. The first assault had failed. Ambassador as stared at in shock. You killed 8 warriors, alone. I had the advantage of position and surprise. They will not make the same mistake twice. Checked his ammunition. He had used nearly a full magazine. At this rate, he would run out of bullets long before ran out of soldiers. We need to set up traps in the corridor, anything that will slow them down or cause confusion. They spent the next 20 minutes preparing. Showed the palace staff how to rig simple traps using loose floor panels, hanging decorations, and even ceremonial vases that would crash and create noise. The traps would not kill anyone, but they would slow the enemy advance and give away positions. Queen worked alongside them, despite Ambassador as urging her to stay safe. She insisted on helping, loading weapons and carrying supplies. Notice she never complained, never questioned his orders. For someone who had grown up in peace, she adapted remarkably well to crisis. The second assault came an hour later. This time the enemy was more cautious. They sent scout drones first, small flying machines that mapped the corridor, shot down 2 of them before they could report back. The third one made it through. Now's forces knew the layout. They came at the throne room from multiple angles, using grenades to clear the traps it set, but had expected this. He had positioned defenders at angles where crossfire would catch the enemy in a kill zone. The battle was fierce. Energy bolts scorched the crystal walls, the air filled with smoke and the smell of burning electronics. 2 of the defenders were wounded, though not seriously, but they held. Every enemy soldier who tried to breach the throne room entrance was driven back or killed. After the second wave retreated, silence fell over the palace. Used the break to redistribute ammunition and reinforce their barriers. They had held 2 assaults, but he could see the strain on everyone's faces. They were not built for war. This kind of violence went against everything in their nature. Ambassador as approached while he reloaded his weapon. I must ask you something. Why do humans do this? Why do you fight battles you cannot win? Who says we cannot win? Be realistic. We are a dozen defenders against thousands of enemies. Our ammunition is limited. No rescue is coming. We will die here. Set down his weapon and looked at the old advisor. Maybe, but every hour we hold is an hour that does not control this throne room. Every hour is an hour where his coup is incomplete. As long as Queen lives and resists, his claim to power is contested. But what does that matter if we all die? It matters because it gives others time to act. My colleague is at Earth's embassy right now, sending messages to the Galactic Council. She is showing them what is happening here. The longer we hold, the more pressure builds on other species to intervene. You gamble all our lives on the hope that aliens light years away might care enough to help. Smiled slightly. I am not gambling, I am buying time. There is a difference. The throne room's communication system suddenly activated. A holographic image appeared in the center of the room. General stood before them, tall and imposing in battle armor. His 4 arms were crossed, his expression one of annoyed curiosity. So the human is the one causing me difficulties, said. His voice was deep and rough. I am impressed. 8 of my warriors dead, 20 more wounded. You fight well for a species so young to the stars. If you are impressed, you should leave, said. Save yourself the embarrassment of losing to one human. Laughed a harsh sound. Brave words but pointless, you cannot win, you know this. Why do you persist? Because Queen is under my protection. You were hired as a consultant, you owe her nothing. I offer you safe passage off this world. I will even pay you for your trouble. Walk away now and you live. Shook his head, no deal. Why? Seemed genuinely puzzled. She is not your queen, they are not your people. You gain nothing by dying here. I gain my honor, I keep my word, that is enough. The general stared at for a long moment. Honor, an interesting concept. Among, honor means loyalty to your blood, to your species. You honor a contract with aliens instead of saving yourself. This is why humans will never be great warriors. You do not understand that survival comes first. Maybe, or maybe you do not understand that some things are worth dying for. His expression hardened. Then you will get your wish. I am sending my full assault force. You held against scouts and advance teams. Let us see how you fare against real warriors. The hologram disappeared, turned to the defenders. They all looked terrified. He could not blame them. They had held so far through luck and tactics, but against a full assault they would be overwhelmed quickly. Queen stood and addressed her people. Anyone who wishes to leave may do so. I do not ask you to die for me, but I will not run. If this is where I make my last stand, then I do so with head held high. No one moved. Ambassador as spoke for them all. Your Majesty, we have served you and your family our entire lives. We will not abandon you now. The human has shown us what loyalty truly means. Felt a surge of respect for these peaceful people. They were scholars and artists, not warriors, but they had found courage when it mattered most. Then we prepare for the worst, said. They will hit us with everything they have. Heavy weapons, grenades, probably explosives to breach the walls. We fall back to secondary positions when the outer defense fails. Make every shot count. He pulled Queen aside while the others prepared. Your Majesty, when the final assault comes, I need you to hide in the far corner behind the throne. There is a small alcove there. It might protect you when the walls come down. I will not hide while others fight for me. You are not hiding. You are surviving. That is your duty. As long as you live has not won. She looked at him with those large, luminous eyes. You are a strange creature. Your people are so young, so new to the galaxy. Yet you have more wisdom than species that have walked the stars for. We are not wise. We are just stubborn. Sometimes that is enough. The sound of marching feet echoed through the corridors. Many feet, too many to count. The final assault was coming. Took his position at the main entrance. He could see them now, at least 50 warriors in full combat armor, supported by heavy weapons teams and portable energy shields. They would not make the same mistakes as before. They would overwhelm the defenders through sheer force. His hands were steady as he aimed his weapon. He was not afraid. Fear would come later if there was a later. Right now there was only the moment, the target, the trigger. Here they come, he said calmly. Make them regret it. The first grenade exploded against their barrier. Then another, and another. The throne room filled with smoke and fire. Through the chaos, kept firing, kept fighting, kept standing his ground. Because that was what humans did. When everyone else ran, they stood. When the odds were impossible, they fought anyway. Not because they expected to win, but because standing meant something. Fighting meant something. Even if no one was watching, even if they died, even if the galaxy never knew their names. They stood. The throne room was barely recognizable anymore. Smoke filled the air so thick that could only see a few meters ahead. The beautiful crystal walls were cracked from weapons fire. Bodies of fallen soldiers lay scattered in the corridors outside. But they kept coming, wave after wave, pressing the attack with relentless determination. Had been forced to fall back 3 times. Each time, he gave up ground reluctantly, making the enemy pay for every step. But he was running out of space and ammunition. They had retreated into the Queen's inner sanctum now, a reinforced chamber designed to protect the royal family during natural disasters. It was their last refuge. The heavy door would hold against small arms fire, but forces had brought cutting equipment. Could hear them working outside, burning through the reinforced material. He had maybe an hour before they broke through. After that, there was nowhere left to run. Checked his weapon. 2 magazines remaining. Around him, the surviving defenders numbered only 6. Ambassador, as had been wounded in the last assault, a burn across his shoulder, but he refused medical attention. The old advisor sat against the wall, still clutching a rifle he barely knew how to use. Queen knelt beside one of her injured staff members, using torn cloth to bandage a wound. Her hands were steady, though could see the fear in her eyes. She had never imagined her rule would end like this, trapped in a small room waiting for death. His communication device suddenly activated. His voice came through, broken by static but understandable. "Are you still alive? For now, what is your status?" "We made it to Earth's embassy. I have been broadcasting everything that happened. The footage of the guards abandoning the Queen, your stand to protect her. It is spreading across the entire galactic network. Every species has seen it." "That is nice, but it does not change our situation here." "Maybe it does. The Galactic Defense Fleet is mobilizing. 3 Earth destroyers broke away from patrol and are heading to Chrysalis Prime at maximum speed. But they are still days away. Can you hold that long?" Looked at the door, watching the enemy cutting equipment slowly burn through. "No, we have an hour at most." "Then get out of there. Find a way to escape." "There is no way out. We knew that when we made our stand." Kept his voice calm, matter of fact. "Tell command that I did my duty. Tell my family I loved them." "No." He switched off the communication device. There was nothing more to say. Either help would arrive in time or it would not. All he could do was hold as long as possible. The door shook as something heavy impacted it from outside. Forces were using explosives now, trying to speed up the breach. The sound was deafening in the small chamber. General's voice came through a speaker in the wall. "Human, I make you one final offer. Surrender the Queen to me and everyone else goes free. You will be released unharmed with full honors for your courage. The other will be spared, only must answer for her weakness." Ambassador as looked at, the old advisor's expression was conflicted. "Perhaps we should consider it. One life for many lives. Is that not the logical choice?" "Logic has nothing to do with it," said. "We do not trade lives like bargaining pieces. We do not sacrifice the innocent to save ourselves." "But she would make the choice herself if we asked. The Queen would give her life for ours." "Probably, which is why we are not asking her." Moved to stand in front of the door, the last line of defense between the enemy and Queen. "If protecting her costs me my life, then that is the price of doing what is right. I will pay it without regret." Queen stood and approached him. She placed her hand on his arm, a gesture of deep respect. "I do not understand your species. You fight impossible battles. You sacrifice yourself for strangers. By all rational measures, your actions make no sense." "Your Majesty, humans are not always rational. Sometimes we do things because they feel right, not because they make sense. Standing here with you feels right." "Why?" "Because you are good. Because you do not deserve what is happening. Because someone needs to show you that not everyone runs when things get hard. Because," he paused, searching for words, "because it is who I choose to be." The Queen's eyes shimmered with tears. In that moment, she understood something fundamental about humans. They possessed a moral conviction that went beyond logic or survival instinct. They could choose to stand when every rational calculation said to flee. That stubbornness, that beautiful refusal to yield, was both their greatest weakness and their greatest strength. The door buckled. Explosive charges had torn through half the reinforcement. The cutting equipment continued its work on the rest. Minutes remained now, not hours. Positioned himself directly in front of the opening, weapon raised. When the door came down, the enemy would have to go through him first. He would not give them an easy path to the Queen. His hands were steady. He thought briefly of Earth, of home, of all the things he would never see again. Then he cleared those thoughts away. They did not matter now. All that mattered was the next few minutes and making sure he used them well. The door collapsed inward with a thunderous crash. Smoke and dust filled the chamber. Through the haze, saw soldiers preparing to rush through. He took a breath, steadied his aim, and prepared for the end. Then everything changed. New explosions, but these were not from the door. They came from outside the palace, from the sky. The entire building shook as if struck by an earthquake. The soldiers at the door stopped, confusion breaking their assault formation. Communication channels suddenly came alive with frantic chatter. His device activated again, but this time it was not his voice. It was a military channel, broadcasting in multiple languages. This is Captain Martinez of the Earth Destroyer Liberty. We have entered Chrysalis Prime orbit with a full battle group. General, you are ordered to cease all hostile actions immediately or face overwhelming force. But there was more. Other voices joined the transmission. Galactic Defense Fleet commanders from a dozen species. They had all arrived, drawn by the broadcasts of what was happening on the planet below. And something else was happening on the ground. Could hear fighting in the palace corridors, but it was moving away from their position. The soldiers attacking the sanctum suddenly found themselves attacked from behind. Commander Hal's voice cut through the chaos. This is the palace guard. We have returned to restore our honor. Any forces loyal to, stand down or face justice. The guards had come back. The same warriors who had abandoned their posts hours ago were now fighting their way through the palace to reach the throne room. The shame of their desertion, amplified by the galaxy watching a human defend their queen while they fled, had become too much to bear. Hal appeared at the broken doorway, his armor scorched and damaged. Behind him came dozens of warriors, fighting ferociously against soldiers. The commander saw standing ready to make his last stand and stopped. "Human," Hal said, his voice heavy with emotion. "You have taught me a lesson I thought I already knew. Duty is not about contracts or convenience. It is about choosing to stand when standing seems impossible." Lowered his weapon slightly. "Does that mean you are here to help?" "We are here to restore our honor, and we are here to stand with you." The battle for the palace turned quickly after that. Forces, finding themselves surrounded and facing overwhelming odds, began to surrender. The general himself tried to escape but was captured at the palace gates. Finally lowered his weapon completely. His hands were shaking now that the adrenaline was fatting. He had held the line long enough. Help had arrived. Against all odds, they had survived. Queen emerged from behind him, looking at Commander Hal with a mixture of relief and sadness. "You came back," she said softly. "We never should have left," the commander replied, bowing deeply. "The humans showed us what we forgot, that honor demands we stand, even when standing means death." Sat down heavily against the wall, exhausted beyond measure. His voice came through his communicator again. "Please tell me you are still alive." "Still here, barely." "You insane, stubborn, wonderful idiot. You actually held them off until help arrived." Managed a weak laugh. "Humans are good at being stubborn." Medical wing of the palace was overwhelmed with wounded from both sides of the battle. Sat on a bed while a doctor examined his injuries. 3 cracked ribs, a dislocated shoulder that had already been reset, multiple lacerations, severe dehydration and exhaustion that went bone deep. But he was alive. Queen entered the medical wing with Ambassador Az, who now wore proper bandages for his shoulder wound. The Queen approached his bed and stood there for a moment, as if searching for words adequate to what had happened. "I do not know how to thank you," she finally said. "You saved my life. You saved my kingdom. You stood when everyone else fled." Tried to sit up, but pain shot through his ribs. "I just did my job, Your Majesty." "No, your job was to consult on security procedures. You were not sworn to protect me. You were not obligated to risk your life, yet you chose to do so anyway." She paused, her large eyes reflecting the medical lights. "Why did you truly do it? Please, I must understand." Took a breath, wincing at the pain. "Your Majesty, there is a concept among humans. We call it doing the right thing, not because someone pays us, not because we get something in return, but because our conscience demands it. When I saw you standing there, abandoned by your guards, I knew what would happen if I left. I knew I could not live with that choice, so I stayed. Ambassador as spoke up. The galaxy is learning about human conscience. The broadcasts of your stand have reached every corner of known space. Every species is discussing what they witnessed. A human defending an alien queen while her own people's warriors fled. How are people reacting? Asked. With shock, with admiration, with shame in some cases. The ambassador sat down carefully. You must understand, most civilized species evolved past the need for self-sacrifice. We value logic, collective benefit, rational decision-making. What you did was, by most measures, illogical, yet it has touched something deep in all of us. A reminder of what we lost when we became too logical, too calculated. The door opened and Commander Hal entered, still wearing his battle-damaged armor. He approached bed and, to everyone's surprise, knelt down. It was a gesture of profound respect, acknowledging someone as a superior warrior. "Human, I came to offer my shame," the commander said. "I abandoned my queen when she needed me most. I told myself it was for logical reasons, for the greater good, for my family and my people. But you showed me the truth. I was a coward hiding behind excuses." "You came back," said. "That took courage too. Only after watching a human do what I should have done from the start. You shamed me. You shamed all of us who call ourselves warriors." Hal looked up with genuine respect. "I have been a soldier for 30 cycles. I have fought in a dozen wars, but I never truly understood duty until I saw you standing alone at that door, refusing to yield." Did not know how to respond to that. He had not been trying to teach anyone a lesson. He had simply done what felt necessary. Over the next few days, as recovered, the full impact of what had happened became clear. General was in custody, facing trial for his attempted coup. His forces had been rounded up and disarmed. But the real change was happening in the wider galaxy. Visited in his recovery room and brought a data pad filled with news feeds. "You need to see this. You are famous, like galaxy famous." Scrolled through the reports. Every major news network across dozens of species was covering the story. The footage had broadcast showed everything. The guards abandoning their posts, choosing to stay, the desperate siege, his final stand at the inner sanctum door. But it was not just the news. Academic institutions were studying human behavior. Military academies were analyzing defensive tactics. Philosophers were writing papers about human concepts of duty and honor. The event had sparked a fundamental reevaluation of how the galaxy viewed humanity. "Earth's ambassadors are being flooded with requests," said. 17 species want human security consultants. 9 want to establish military training exchanges. The Galactic Council has fast-tracked Earth's application for full membership status. Because I refused to run away, was still struggling to process it all. Because you showed them something they had forgotten. Most advanced species evolved in ways that minimized self-sacrifice. It makes logical sense. Societies that value collective survival over individual heroism tend to be more stable, but they lost something in that process. They lost the ability to inspire others through personal courage. Thought about that. So I am a curiosity to them, a primitive human doing primitive things. "No," said firmly, "you are a reminder that sometimes the primitive response is the right response, that logic is not always enough, that some things are worth fighting for even when fighting seems pointless." A week after the siege, Queen held a formal ceremony in the restored throne room. Representatives from across the galaxy attended, eager to witness what would happen. Stood before the throne in his dress uniform, still moving carefully because of his healing ribs. The Queen spoke to the assembled crowd, her voice carrying through the hall. "We gather today to honor a human who showed us the true meaning of loyalty, when our own guards fled, remained. When death seemed certain, he stood his ground. When offered escape, he chose duty. His actions have reminded us all of what it means to protect those who cannot protect themselves. She approached holding a crystalline medallion, the star of the highest honor her people could bestow. Of Earth, I name you guardian of the realm, protector of my house, and friend to all. Your courage has saved not just my life but my people's faith in goodness. Accepted the honor with a bow. The crowd erupted in applause that echoed through the crystal halls. But the ceremony was not finished. Queen had another announcement. Today I also sign a treaty with Earth. The Earth Alliance, built on principles of mutual protection and shared values. We invite humans to train our people in the ways of defense, not because we wish to become warriors, but because we must learn to protect ourselves and those we care for. After the ceremony, found himself surrounded by alien diplomats and military leaders, all wanting to speak with him. It was overwhelming. He eventually escaped to the palace gardens, seeking some quiet. Queen found him there, sitting on a bench overlooking the city. The capital was still being repaired, but life was returning to normal. She sat beside him, comfortable silence stretching between them. "Are you well?" she asked finally. "Just tired and confused. I did not expect any of this." "What did you expect?" "Honestly, I expected to die in that throne room. Everything since then has been a surprise." The Queen looked at him thoughtfully. "When this is all settled and you have recovered, I want you to stay. Be my personal guard captain. Help train my people. Show us more of what humans understand about courage and duty." Considered it. Part of him wanted to return to Earth, to normalcy. But another part recognized that something important was happening here. Earth was new to the galactic stage. His actions had opened doors that might otherwise have remained closed for generations. "I will stay," he said, "for a while at least. There is work to be done." "Thank you," she stood to leave but paused. "You asked me once what I learned from all this. I learned that the galaxy had forgotten something important. We became so focused on logic and efficiency that we forgot about the power of standing for what is right. You reminded us. One human, standing alone, reminded an entire galaxy." After she left, sat in the garden as the sun set, painting the sky in colors that reminded him of Earth but were distinctly alien. He thought about the path that had led him here, to this world, to that moment when he had to choose between safety and duty. He had made his choice, and that choice had changed everything. Somewhere in the palace, Commander Hal was training guards in basic combat techniques, teaching them that sometimes you had to be willing to fight to protect peace. Was at the Earth Embassy, coordinating the arrival of more human advisors and security specialists. The Galactic Council was drafting new protocols for planetary defense, inspired by lessons learned from the siege. And the human who refused to run sat in an alien garden and realized he had found something he had not even known he was searching for: a purpose, a place where his skills and his conscience aligned perfectly. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Never underestimate the human who gives their word. When everyone else runs, when the odds are impossible, when death seems certain, humans have a strange habit of standing their ground. Not because they are fearless, not because they expect to win, but because they have decided some things are worth fighting for, even when fighting seems pointless. And in that stubborn, irrational, beautiful refusal to yield lies humanity's greatest gift to the stars. The reminder that courage matters, that honor matters, that standing up for what is right, even when you stand alone, can change the galaxy. Smiled slightly, feeling the warm alien sun on his face, and decided he was exactly where he needed to be.